Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily take time to consider the devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is January 8th, and the focus scripture is Genesis 22 and verse 9. Abraham built an altar, and he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar. In my reading of today's devotional, these considerations came to me. Dr. Chambers uses Abraham to help us understand the true meaning of sacrifice. The takeaway for me was that it was not intended for Abraham to kill Isaac simply as a sacrifice to God. It was that God wanted Abraham to give evidence that there was nothing more important to Abraham than God, even in the offering up of his son. If you aren't familiar with the Abraham story regarding his son, it's found in Genesis 15 and verse 4 on through chapter 21. At the birth of Isaac, Abraham was 100 and his wife Sarah was 90. They had waited for at least 13 years and much more for a son. And now God is having Abraham offer this son on an altar for death. What would Abraham do? Deny God in this command? Refuse obedience to God? Why would God make such a huge request from Abraham? The reason for the request was to allow Abraham to prove that no matter how big the matter is that God wants from us, he was willing to obey. The turning away from God can often occur once we receive from God what we've been praying and praying for. Then afterwards we wane in our devotion or interest to spiritual matters. We begin forgetting God, a job we've prayed for so long, a relationship. Something that seemed so important to get now acts as a stumbling block in keeping God as your primary focus. In the case of Abraham, it could have been that child, that son who would carry forward the family inheritance. This did not prove to be such in Abraham's case, for his love and faith in God was so great that he was willing to trust God in all matters, even when it seemed impossible to bear. This was because he knew God's overwhelming love for him. If you really know God's love for you and trust in his love for you, then you are willing to give up, to sacrifice anything that you know is displeasing to him or creates separation from him due to your putting self first. It's not just loving God, but knowing that he loves you and asks for you to give up nothing but that which is best from which to be purged. Quoting from Dr. Chambers, God never tells us to give up things just for the sake of giving them up, but he tells us to give them up for the sake of the only thing worth having, namely life with himself. It is a matter of loosening the bands that hold back our lives. Those bands are loosened immediately by identification with the death of Jesus. Then we enter into a relationship with God whereby we may sacrifice our lives to him. Not for him, for there is no worthy sacrifice but Christ. We are to sacrifice, give up ownership of our life to him. That's really big. I know that I say that I love God, but how much do I trust in his love for me? Are there matters in your life of which he is convicting you to let go because you're refusing to do so? Such an attitude will keep one from spiritual growth and of being able to experience God's utmost for your life. Trust him. If you haven't yet read today's devotional from Dr. Chambers' book, I encourage you to do so, for it will enhance the time we spend together. Dr. Chambers' book is available free online for reading and study. I invite you to share here your thoughts from today's reading, from today's study, and also any prayer requests. And now may God's grace and peace be yours as we seek to live our utmost for his highest. Thanks for being here today. God bless you.